God Eater's Burst and Resurrection arcs were added after the release of the original. In both cases, you would have to buy a brand new version of the game if you didn't already own God Eater Burst or Resurrection. Thankfully, Resurrection includes all the previous stuff, so we don't need to worry about that. I've already introduced all the major gameplay elements in my previous video, which you can see here, up in the corner, but for now I'm going to add to that section, as it was a bit heavy in my original video. Skill installation is kind of like the decoration system in Monster Hunter, for those of you who have played that. Once unlocked, you obtain Abandoned God Arcs at the end of each mission. These will have random generated skills at specific levels on them. These skills can be inherited onto your existing usable God Arcs. Each arc can hold up to 4 skills. Not all the skills are created equal though. Keep in mind that some skills will contain other skills as well, so one skill could contain multiple skills within it. You can view this by looking at the skill info menu. Some skills are also only active during burst, which gives you another reason to maintain it, and other skills will only be active if the skill hits level 10. You can combine skill levels, meaning if you have defense level 3 on your gun and defense level 7 on your shield, you will have defense level 10. Skills do not stack past level 10 per character. Installing skills is a way to make your builds more unique to maximize damage output and minimize damage that you take. Resurrection also introduces the variant scythe to the game, which was originally introduced in God Eater 2. So something pretty unique to God Eater is that you can make your own bullets. The problem is that the system is very confusing. Guides do not explain how to use it that well. I can't really explain it that well either, since I don't use the system too much, as it confuses the hell out of me. But if you're willing to tinker a bit and look up some YouTube tutorials, I think you can find some good bullets that can nuke enemies and break their bonds or down them pretty easily. When I say God Eater Burst, I'm referring to difficulties 7 through 10. This is the extension of the original God Eater, and is roughly a decade old now. So the animations are pretty samey to God Eater, meaning there's a lot of age on them, and you'll be able to tell. There's a lot of stuff here that I really like, but Burst also kind of pulls the main character, or the player character, into being the main character of the arc. I can't talk about it too much without spoilers, but I'll let you know what happens when I talk about the spoilers. The introduction of the Hannibal is pretty neat. He's a big serpent dragon thing that slaps the crap out of you. He hits all the fantasy lizard tropes while also managing to be somewhat unique. I'd say the best part is that the Hannibal powers up if you break the bond on its back. You can either carefully go about the fight without breaking the bond, or you can be like me and my friend and try to blast it open immediately. The music in this arc is pretty much just reused from the original game, barring the Hannibal's theme, which is honestly pretty good. So if we're talking Resurrection, the final arc of the original God Eater, we're going to talk about the animation quality, because the animation quality surges up higher. In 2016, this was some good stuff, especially from Bandai Namco. Of course, they do even better later on, but you notice Bandai really pulling out the stops for all the action scenes that they have in this, which they don't have in the original God Eater. Resurrection's story arc also kind of reels it back and focuses on all of your squad mates again, and doesn't center itself around you. And I think that's a great conclusion to the first God Eater game. The music in Resurrection, however, is a little bit all over the place. There are several new tracks in the game, and they aren't the worst, but I do like the music from the original more. All in all, I think both these arcs have a lot going for them. As a fair note, God Eater 2 and God Eater 2 Rage Burst released before the Resurrection arc, so there are no spoilers if you decide to move on to God Eater 2 without playing the Resurrection arc of the game. Resurrection also does not spoil anything for God Eater 2 either. So my verdict for God Eater Resurrection is a solid 8 out of 10. It's a pretty good game, with a lot of mechanical depth to it. A lot of the presentation factors, however, have aged considerably, and the biggest thing you're left with is a lot of blank expressions and weird animations. The lack of a Japanese dub is also pretty disappointing, as I've seen it requested a lot, but pretty much everything else is good. If you can take some anime tropes, this game could work out pretty well in your list. I sunk a good 30 hours into the game, but if you don't have someone to help you rush it, then you can probably sink in more. And also, if you didn't have to get a video out about it, you can sink in a lot more into this game. So now we're approaching spoiler territory. I'm going to go a bit in depth with the stories of God Eater Burst and Resurrection. If you're here and you don't want to get spoiled, thanks for watching, and please like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one, and comment down below if you plan to play the God Eater series or have played it. If you have any questions, again, I'll do my best to answer them. Anyways, here come the spoilers. So I'm not exactly a huge fan of the silent protagonist becoming the central focus for this arc. Granted, you're not actually the central focus, it's just that the game requires your character to be more involved. I do think that it's necessary here, but the key is silent protagonists. If your protagonist had more lines and more talking, and actually had like character development, I would be more interested in this arc. And I think the game does a fantastic job at hinting at Ren's mysterious nature of who he is, as Hibari doesn't call him out for low health or being downed, Tsubaki does not acknowledge him when introducing new types, and Ren heavily alludes towards who he is in the first conversation you have with him. Of course, saving Lindo is a pretty convenient plot point. Would it have been better if he died? I don't really think so, when you concern the future of the series, but it is pretty heavy on the power of friendship, so you'll have to forgive the old 2011 game for that. I think overall it winds up being a good choice. It presents the idea that people of the world don't fully understand how God Eaters work, how Oracle cells work, and all of that. And it's not a total ass pull compared to some other shit the series does later down the line. For this arc, your members of the first unit become side characters. They don't really get that much focus. Even Sakuya, who's very important to Lindo, isn't a main focus for this arc. While it's kind of unclear, Shio returns a bit in the Resurrection arc. You get a glimpse of her loneliness. The more interesting part of this arc is the Nova. The Nova is an origami capable of absorbing and gaining traits of the origami cores that it eats. This arc brings back the feel of God Eater's first arc, letting your character take a backseat to give others the spotlight. There's not a lot of development that comes from here, since you can't really change the development of characters between God Eater 1 and 2 when 2 already exists. But there are a few nice moments, like Koda trying to figure out how he can help people.
It is only now I realize I've never gotten him to crack a smile.
And Soma shredding his normal demeanor for everyone else. While I did say the Nova is interesting, it turns out to be a pretty disappointing boss fight. It's said to be very strong and have all these traits of other origami, but it turns out to be a Diaos Pita variant. If the Pita had its wings at 100% health, that's basically this fight. I really wish they took advantage of the idea of having different traits of every origami. I mean, at this point, Venus would make more sense to be the Nova than the Nova itself. But really, that does it for God Eater Resurrection. We'll be tackling God Eater 2 next week, I think, so please stay tuned for it.